titles don't mean as much. We've given them a lot more power than they necessarily have. It's really experience and anything else that's important to you. And for me, that's balance. That's being able to put my family first while still having a job that excites me, that is worth spending time away from my family to do, that I can feel good about. Because at the end of the day, when all is said and done and my time is coming, I want to be able to look back and say, did I help sell a lot of product for someone, or did I leave the world in a better place than I found it? And of course, for me now, it's the latter.
Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a podcast about women who work in sports. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake. After 15 years of working for 3 major league teams, including the Boston Red Sox, Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Chicago Cubs, I discovered the one thing I loved the most was helping women in sports shatter glass ceilings and take their seat at the table. I loved it so much that I made a business out of it. I have the honor of coaching high-performing women in the sports and entertainment industry and supporting them as they go after exactly what they want in their career. So if you are feeling tired of waiting on the sidelines, done being overlooked for promotions, and you're ready to pull ahead of the pack and take your career to the next level, girl, I'm here for it. I also created the Game of Her Own podcast to support you as well. We are here to share the stories of incredible women who work in sports and entertainment. These leaders and trailblazers will inspire you with their success and the lessons they've learned along the way to the top. Ladies, there is nothing like women empowering women. I am so honored you're here.
Have you ever seen a job description and felt discouraged because you have no connections, nobody to help you get past the gatekeepers, nobody to push your resume in front of the decision makers? What I'm about to say next breaks my heart. I've had people tell me that there are jobs that they believed they were a great fit for, but didn't apply because they also believed that the role was super competitive and they knew that their resume wasn't going to make the cut. First of all, if you've done that before, please let it be your last time. Don't count yourself out. Do not make up a story in your head that causes you to reject yourself. You should always go for the job that you want and believe in the value you bring to the table. Just like my next guest, Ashley Dos Santos. She is the Senior Director of Communications for the LA Olympic and Paralympic Games. She got an interview and obviously was offered the role with the Olympic Committee with no connections. Ashley not only tells us how she got an interview with no connections, but she tells you why you shouldn't count yourself out of a job search when you feel like you don't know anyone. She also talks about how she approaches achieving balance when working for the largest global sports event. Ashley also talks about leading a team and why she believes it is personal. We also get into how she lives into her values and beliefs at work. And y'all, you know there is so much more. All right, Game of Her Own listeners, let's do this. Ashley, welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast. I am so honored you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great already.
Take us back in time and tell us when you first fell in love with sports.
Oh man, I think I first fell in love with sports as a kid, just watching some of the biggest matchups in my generation, at least, like Magic Johnson versus Michael Jordan, remembering the first emergence of Tiger Woods and what that meant for Black America and, the entire golf industry, watching the Williams sisters come up. So I think just seeing people who looked like me in sports and the levels to which they were excelling was something that really excited me. And I wanted to be part of the industry.
Now, I don't mean to be like nosy and be in your business about your age, but how old were you when Tiger was coming up and the Williams sisters were coming up?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I was a kid for sure. It doesn't really specify, but,
high school, middle school?
I would say probably elementary to middle school.
Isn't that crazy? So for me, I was in college. Yeah. I think Tiger won his first Masters in 98. Don't quote me on that. I remember all of this going on and, the Williams sisters and everything, all of the things she was named. I was like, oh yeah, I was much older. And I always wonder what impact that would have had on me if I saw that when I was younger.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely remember watching just being obsessed with the Bulls when I was a kid, definitely elementary school time for that. And only because of Michael Jordan and all of the inroads that he was making in ways that, we had the Kareems of the world, we had these other phenomenal players, but Michael just paved his own way in a manner that I don't even think we've fully seen since. And yeah, the Williams sisters, especially being from LA, knowing that they were from Compton, like down the street from where I grew up, just things like that really resonated at an age where it was able to make a huge impact on me.
That's fantastic. Okay. So why don't you tell everybody what you do now and who you do it for?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the Senior Director of Communications at LA28. We are the organizing committee for the Olympic and Paralympic Games when they come to LA in six and a half short years. This will be the third time that LA is hosting the Olympic Games and the first time that we're hosting the Paralympic Games. So it presents a huge opportunity when it comes to, creating parity and equity between the two games and looking at really increasing, inclusion and awareness, acceptance, you name it, with hosting these games. I help manage all internal and external communications when it comes to the LA28 Games. So that means working with the IOC and NGBs, national governing bodies. There's lots of acronyms in our world, and the IOC being the International Olympic Committee, IPC, International Paralympic Committee. So work with them a ton, work with city and federal government stakeholders, partner with our marketing team, especially on a lot of community engagement initiatives, making sure that we are able to have a diverse array of voices that are contributing to the planning for the games overall. It's really important that we engage the next generation of fans and athletes, the folks who will actually be, watching and absorbing and celebrating these games the most in 2028. And so we're keeping an eye towards that and just looking to build our community as we go.
Did you always know you wanted to work in either sports or the Olympics? Like, I know Olympics is obviously sports, but did you have that in your mind?
I didn't necessarily have that in my mind. I explored a wide variety of interests and careers before I landed on communications first and then entertainment second. Entertainment's always been a huge passion point of mine since I was a child. And I think the dream was to do something in entertainment in some sort of way, but I didn't even know what that looked like. If I was going to be a camera person or if I was going to work in finance. I loved math growing up as a kid, so thought maybe I'll do something with that. And then I loved language. I was all over the place. And finally, I was able to net out on communication sort of by accident in a couple of really interesting internships I had in college while not studying anything that had to do with sports or communications at all. And then my career just sort of took me on this natural path that I just let steer me as far as the different industries that I was working on until I finally got to where I am now in sports and entertainment. And it is where I'm happiest. It is my sweet spot. I've been in the industry now for about 8 years and almost 20 in communications as a whole. So it feels right. And it feels like home. So I know that I've landed in the right place.
I know a lot of people listening are probably like, Olympics, that's where I want to be. Was it a hard process to get there? Take us a little bit through that journey.
Yeah, it was one of the easiest processes actually that I've ever had.
You guys, listen, everyone, whatever you're doing, if you're driving, maybe you hit pause so you can take some notes or something, but this is okay. So tell us more. That is not what I expected you to say.
Easy in that it was an easy, clear decision when the opportunity arose. So I was already working for Ticketmaster and Live Nation Entertainment in communications, doing sports and entertainment the entire time, pretty much split almost evenly between sports and concerts, especially. And of course, as we all know, because we've all lived it, no matter what your age, 2020 was a big year for a lot of reasons that we don't even need to really go into, besides the fact that everything that happened made the live event industry, of course, take a very huge, labored pause. And we didn't know what the future held until there was a vaccine, until we had better restrictions, all of the things. So knowing that, I decided to take a look at what else was out there, since live entertainment at least was pausing for, the foreseeable future. And I literally stumbled across the LA28 job post on LinkedIn one day, very randomly, submitted my resume without thinking twice and heard back from HR pretty quickly thereafter. I didn't know anybody. The power of networking is so real. I have been able to leverage that to my advantage in the past. This was not one of those situations. I talked to the HR director at the time who told me the mission and vision of the games, which was squarely in line with me wanting to work for a mission-driven organization and being a proud Angelina myself, repping my city on a global scale just seems like an amazing opportunity and no-brainer. And as I went through the interview process, I kept meeting one phenomenal human after the other. LA28 has some of the best people, best team members in every single part of the organization that I've ever had the privilege of working with. So for me, once that offer, I was blessed to have that come across the table. It was really a clear decision once I aligned my personal priorities with my professional, and LA28 is a perfect marriage of those two.
I'm just thinking about like your values and how do you live into those? Better question. You guys can be the judge of this, but how do you make sure that you ask the right questions during the interview process to make sure that they're not only, talking the talk, but they're walking the walk and making sure that what they're saying is what they're actually going to do?
For sure. That's huge. So for me, I had to take a step back, even when I was just looking at what my next step was going to be in the situation that I was sort of forced into because of how the world was. And I was like, okay, I've been chasing title and status and all of these things to keep getting to the next level in my career for so long that I wasn't really seeing the forest through the trees of what was important to me on a personal level, what was important for my family and our overall well-being. And once I took that step back and looked to see what my personal filters were for the next step, that is when I came across LA28. And, as far as walking the walk, it's a little bit of intuition and it's a little bit of pen on paper, show me that you mean what you say. And for LA28, they had already pledged $160 million by the time I came around to creating access for kids around LA to be able to play youth sport, with adaptive sport being a huge part of that. So, wheelchair basketball and para canoe and things like that, and giving kids opportunities that they wouldn't have, that they haven't had in my hometown, to really empower the next generation in general, not necessarily trying to create the next Michael Phelps or Serena Williams, but instilling a sense of pride, collaboration, teamwork that comes with playing sports at a young age that you can carry with you no matter what you do in your life, even if you decide to not become a professional athlete. And let's be honest, most of us don't. So that commitment was already on the table before I had my first interview. So I saw that they at least meant what they were saying from that perspective. And then as I continued my conversations, everyone was just so genuine and real and spoke about how they were bringing their personal values to the organization and were only doing so because it did embody them already. So it's a little bit of intuition and being able to trust the people that you're speaking to, that they really mean what they're saying. And I think in a certain extent, you can see how some corporations have these, CSR, corporate social responsibility initiatives that they just add on to the end of their mission, and write a check and call it a day, but it's not genuine to who they are and what they stand for. But at LA28, I'm a very critical, cynical person. So I've been trying to poke holes ever since I joined the org a year and a half ago, and I have not been able to find one. And that is the first time in my, again, nearly 20-year career where I can say that.
Wow, that's fantastic. You said something really interesting about chasing titles. Did I get that right?
You did. Okay. Yeah.
Talk more about that, because I know that you were VP at Edelman. You were a VP at OVPR. I hope I'm saying that right. Yep. So in the communication space, you really were an executive. And honestly, an executive is different. The title and an executive somewhere else may be a director, but somewhere else may be a VP. But so I use that loosely. But you were an executive, and then you kind of went over to the director role. Like, talk about how that came to be. Was that part of you just kind of going through your own, your filters?
Part of it was a learning process, to be perfectly honest. I started off the first half of my career, the first decade in agency life. And that is all I really knew besides, what I saw with the clients that I worked with. So I was just progressing, director, senior director, VP, eyeing that EVP or, group manager title, not really understanding how it worked outside of agency life once you go into in-house positions. And even with in-house, it's so inconsistent. I mean, a manager at Ticketmaster is sort of a little bit more than entry level, getting towards that mid-level area. A manager at Facebook is like an EVP somewhere else. So I learned very quickly that titles don't necessarily mean much in communicating your level of expertise. And so it was important for me to take a step back from being so title conscious and really looking at the work that needed to be done, the growth opportunities for me on a personal level, not even ascending through a company, but how could I continue to learn and grow and challenge myself on a day-to-day basis? And because of that level of education on the job, I was able to understand how titles don't mean as much as we've given them a lot more power than they necessarily have. It's really experience and anything else that's important to you. And for me, that's balance. That's being able to put my family first while still having a job that excites me, that gets me up in the morning, that is worth spending time away from my family to do, that I can feel good about. Because at the end of the day, when all is said and done and my time is coming, I want to be able to look back and say, did I help sell a lot of product for someone, or did I leave the world in a better place than I found it? And of course, for me now, it's the latter.
Yes. I'm so glad that we connected at the She Believes Summit. Like I was like, oh, she's going to be such a fantastic guest. What I hear you saying is chasing titles can be dangerous. Is that fair to say?
In many ways, it can. I am definitely someone who has experienced burnout on more than one occasion in my career. And it's because I felt this intense pressure, somewhat self-imposed, somewhat, imposed by society. As a Black woman, I had to prove that I deserved a seat at the table above and beyond many, many other people who were seated at the same table. And there was just this weight that was always on me to push myself to near breaking point, near exhaustion in order to excel. And titles and of course, compensation were really a driving factor in how I defined success at the time. And it's the benefit now of being relatively older and wiser to know that that is not what life is about. But if you came to me in my mid-20s and said that, I probably would have laughed in your face. So lesson learned. And I hope that I can at least pass that on to other people so they can avoid some of the, sleepovers in the office that I had way too often and had somehow normalized in my head.
What? I will say, of all the things I've done, that has definitely not been on my list.
That's good.
Ooh.
That's good. No one should be doing that. And yet I did. And I knew a lot of other people that did too in different jobs. It wasn't just like one place, several different jobs. There were late night work parties up until, sunrise, which was just nuts.
Oh, well, so that sounded like there wasn't even sleeping. That was just like staying overnight in the office, but still awake.
Yeah, cat napping on whatever sort of, random open couch you can find. But
all right, just to set the record straight, you are not recommending that lifestyle.
I am recommending that if you see that lifestyle happening, you need to run screaming. That is my recommendation.
Talk to us a little bit about, so it's the Olympics and Paralympics. That's a huge, huge undertaking. And yeah, it's in 2028, but that's going to be here before we know it. And all the planning is happening now, right?
Yeah.
Like, otherwise you wouldn't be in the role that you're in right now. So how are you balancing maybe the self-imposed pressure, right? That goal of leaving the world a better place than, you found it, as things start to ramp up? Like, how do you, and I don't know if balance is the right word, harmony, like how do you plan to tackle that or are you already tackling that?
I tackle it every day. And, there are ebbs and flows. We first won the bid for the games in 2017 and began our work in earnest in 2018, late 2017 for the games. So that gave us a 10-year window, the longest runway of any organizing committee to have in planning the games, which is amazing. So we're able to sort of front load a lot of our commercial pursuits and things like that in the first few years so that we can spend the rest of the time focusing on how we're going to create this amazing games experience for athletes and fans and how we're going to put our money, time, and talent where our mouths are when it comes to leaving behind that human legacy. So that's how the game started. When I first came on board, to be perfectly honest, I thought it was going to be relatively slowly paced. I would be doing a lot of foundational tool building because while we're part of this historic games entity that's been around forever, we're in many ways still a startup because we didn't exist before 2017. So it's balancing that where you're creating these foundational tools and then you're also already, on this major run up to the biggest peaceful global event that we have, especially in entertainment. So I came in thinking it would be slow and steady wins the race. I realized in week one that was not the case, that there was so much going on between city collaboration and, youth empowerment and everything that we had going that was fully off and running by the time that I joined the org. So now that we are past all of the games that have happened, the most recent summer and winter games, we can sort of take a step back and do the foundation building that I thought we were going to be doing, a couple of years back, which is great because we're able to use 22, in a the rest of it is a non-games year to be able to say, what do we need to do and build now that's scalable so that we can be successful, by 28. So that's it on the business side. And for me, it's giving myself enough grace to see that when we are slowing down to a more regular pace, that it's okay for me to not burn the midnight oil just because I feel that personal drive. If I'm able to cut myself off at 5:00 and go and enjoy my night and rest and recharge so that I can be that much better for the next day, then why wouldn't I do that and take advantage of that? And I think sometimes it's just our reflex to always be on email, always be checking our phones, always be responding to a Slack as soon as we get it. That pressure oftentimes is self-imposed. And if that pressure isn't self-imposed, if it's coming from someplace else, we need to ask ourselves, is that real? Or are these sort of made up deadlines because everyone just wants to feel like they're churning? And in some cases, the answer will be yes to either of those questions. And you just have to figure out what's critically important versus what can wait a day or two so that I can breathe and be kind to myself.
That right there is just a whole quote, like a whole thing. That was, yes, beautifully said. All right. So you got the pressure and you're figuring out this balance / harmony thing, whatever, a combination of the two. It's the Olympics. LA28. I mean, the Olympics and the Paralympics. And so talk to us a little bit about, let's just be real. Not that you're not being real, but were you nervous stepping into this role? Did you, a lot of listeners suffer from lack of confidence at times, imposter syndrome, self-doubt. Did any of those things creep up now, or did they in the past in your career?
In the past in my career, they crept up almost every day, honestly. I felt the same insecurities at 32 that I did at 22. And the imposter syndrome, especially when I'm sitting in boardrooms with folks in the C-suite, was so real. And so much self-doubt of, should I really be here? Someone else is speaking up and they said an opinion that's exactly what I had in my head. But, it's important for me to stay silent so that I don't say something dumb and then everyone writes me off. Just standing in my own way so often because I just felt like I was lucky with every step, every promotion that I was taking, as opposed to really owning that I worked my behind off in order to get to that next level. And it took me a very long time, I would say probably up until my last job, to get that level of confidence where I felt squarely and securely that this was where I was supposed to be, that I deserved to be here, that I had been proving myself time and time again to everyone. And now it was time to prove myself to me. And I've been doing that now relatively confidently, still a work in progress for the past few years. So I was able to come into LA28, owning my worth and my experience. And yeah, sometimes I still am thrown a curveball that I am not necessarily prepped for, but I feel confident based on my previous experiences that I can learn anything that I need to learn in order to be successful.
Hey, Jahaan here. I hope you're enjoying the interview. I'm sure you are thinking about your own career right now and how you can pull out in front of the pack to take your career to the next level. For 18 years, supporting women in sports has been my favorite part of my career, and I would love to support you. Whether it's joining my free Game of Her Own community or one of my one-on-one coaching programs, I am here for you. Send me a message at jblake@jahaanblake.com or DM me on Instagram at jahaanblake, and let's schedule a time to have a free session. I cannot wait to hear from you. All right, let's get back to why you're here.
How'd you go about doing that? Because it sounds like you went through your career and then you finally stepped into your own and stepped into your power. How did you what were a few things that you started to implement in order to get to that place?
I mean, being totally real, the number one thing was therapy. Really being able to say, I am not managing this all as well as I could be. This feeling of constant fatigue is not okay. This is not how I want to live my life long term. I will not make it to my grandmommy's age, who will be 96 in a couple days, if I keep maintaining this level of stress and honestly unhappiness, because I was working myself into the ground and I was getting all the accolades that I wanted, but it didn't mean anything. I wasn't happy, or I was happy for a fleeting moment and then unhappy for 10 times those amount of moments. So it was going to somebody else, going to a stranger and saying, I need help, after going to a lot of my close inner circle of friends and family and saying, I need help, and realizing that I needed a paid professional to be able to give me impartial guidance to help me get to where I am today. And that has been probably a few years now in the making, and trial and error, even on the therapy line. I'm on my third one, probably in as many years. And she's phenomenal now. It's like any kind of relationship. You've got to date around until you find the right flow.
Yes, you're exactly right. That's 100% right.
So that I have to give that the most credit. And then doing the work outside of those sessions with myself and being honest with my loved ones, with my husband, with my best friend, about what mattered to me, what my struggles were, and trying to figure out how to work through them. So I have to say, the hard work was there, the drive was there already, but that self-care and that acknowledgement of the importance of peace and space and giving myself permission to relax, which I never did, was huge, and which was how I got there.
It sounds like to me, it's friends, family, therapy, in no particular order, and commitment. Those are your 4 things that sort of helped you step into your own power.
That sounds exactly right. That was a perfect distilling of that. But I would say I would combine friends and family, because for me, especially, I am adopted. Blood ties don't necessarily matter as much to me. So it's created family, which includes my friends as well. So I put that all in one bucket for sure. And then therapy and commitment.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Tell me more. I feel like I have all these questions and I keep looking at the time, so I don't want to go over time. So now you're jumping into this, you're in this role, what, a year now?
Year and a half. Yeah.
A year and a half. All right. Let's talk about something I haven't talked about with a guest in a while. Talking about effectively leading a team. I think it's always been difficult to lead a challenge to lead a team, right? Whether you're the greatest manager or not, it's still a lot of work, and it still can sometimes be a challenge. I think the world in the last 2 years has shifted so much, and expectations of employees have shifted as well. And so I'm wondering if you could share with them some ways to just really go about effectively leading your team.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a good question, and it's so personal, because I've spoken to others about this, and everyone has a very different story and approach. For me, I think the easiest way to explain it is you're naturally better at something that you really enjoy doing. And I love managing teams is something that I was always eager to do. The second, when I was still early on in my career, I was the one clamoring to get interns and get things so that I could help them learn the ropes. I think because, and this is probably also, again, tied to the fact that I am adopted and people chose to take me in as their own and show me the way. It's something that I really, really value in doing for others, especially when it comes to career building, because I'm only where I am today, yes, based on hard work, but also the people who looked back and extended their hand to help bring me along the journey and, teach me what they knew, because communications especially is a very hands-on, learn from experience type role. You can, of course, get your master's and even PhD and things like that. But for me, it was learning on the job that really helped get me to where I am. So because I've had such amazing people ahead of me lead that way, it's something that has been very, very important for me that I hope to do throughout the entirety of my career to help manage people and help them along that same journey. And at the end of the day, I think a great leader knows to sort of put themselves on the back burner and know that if they're able to help their team perform at an optimal level, everyone benefits. It shouldn't be a political thing or, you can't have this title because this is mine or things like that. We are all one team. We use the word team for a reason. And you are only as successful as, your newest, youngest team member who you're showing the ropes. So for me, it was trying to show everything, teach everything that I know, that I've learned, and then also empower people to just try things on their own and make mistakes along the way and help them in that journey. But I really like to lead by collaboration and transparency, tell people why we're doing something, not just do this, but give them the rationale behind it so that they can learn about the big picture process and not just sort of the micro, let's build a media list right now. But no, this is how this is going to help our Fortune 100 company get through earnings and ultimately be successful this year.
This isn't that was just a whole mini little masterclass, right? It was within the podcast, just about, managing a team. So, people might be thinking, how do I go work for her? Not only does she have a good approach to managing and leading, but she's also at the Olympics. Tell us what is going on. I know we talked about this a little bit at the summit, but are there jobs? How do you go about it? Everybody thinks, well, in order to get into the Olympics, you have to know somebody. And you just disproved that because you did not. You just applied.
LinkedIn is your friend. You think that it's impossible. And I did find out that my application was one of literally thousands for my role. And somehow, through the grace of God and an amazing HR team at LA28, we were able to get connected directly. So I would say, do not count yourself out for anything. There is nothing but opportunity. And over the next 6 years, there will continue to be literally thousands of jobs, of full-time jobs. I don't mean part-time. I don't mean seasonal. I don't mean volunteer. Thousands of full-time jobs at LA28 that are going to be opening up between now and the next 6 years. We are currently hiring on the communications team as we speak. Almost every team in LA28 right now is actively hiring. Literally every day I wake up and I look at our career Slack channel and someone else in HR has posted a new job rec. Most of the new jobs are posted in the first half of the year. So I would recommend, keeping your eye out for that on LinkedIn and Greenhouse. And if you want to work in business integration, you want to work in event planning, you want to work in social media, communications, of course, community, impact, government relations, there are jobs for you and other jobs that I haven't even mentioned. There are summer internships that are also full-time and paid, which I didn't have a ton of when I was growing up. So I very much appreciate that we do that now. There are just so many opportunities to work with LA28, and that's just full-time. We are also going to have part-time positions. We are also going to have volunteer positions. You could volunteer with LA28 today. So, this is something that we want to open up to the world, because we are so excited as Angelinos to be able to welcome the world to the games in 6 short years.
And I imagine that you're not just taking locals, right?
We're not just taking locals. I will say one of the requirements is to either live in LA or make a commitment to relocating to LA at some point in the near future, because we are putting on an LA Games. But at this point, we have, team members all over the place. We have a smaller office in New York. We work a lot with our friends over at Team USA who are based in Colorado Springs. We definitely have folks that are, slowly migrating this way, but we have people now who work for LA28 that, moved here from Europe and from other areas to be part of the team. So we really are welcoming the world to apply ahead of welcoming the world to enjoy the Olympic and Paralympic Games.
I love that. Where do people go if they're interested?
Check out LA28 on LinkedIn. That is the easiest way. I would just go ahead and follow LA28. You will see jobs, especially now. I mean, this week alone, I have seen probably 5-10 jobs posted in just the past few days. So definitely keep following us on LinkedIn and our other social media platforms as well. But you will always see stuff popping up.
That's good. And I'll link to it in the show notes too, to make it easy for people. They can scroll down, click it, and get right there. Yes. Okay. Are you ready for rapid fire questions?
Rapid fire. Let's do it.
All right. 12 questions. First thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
No pressure at all. What is your favorite sports moment?
Oof. You know what? I'm going to go with the most recent because I just got back from the Final Four. My cousin, Coach Jeremy Case, is the assistant coach at Kansas University. So I was incredibly fortunate to be able to go out and see their Final Four game and national championship win. So this last game was a nail biter. If anyone watched, the first half was a struggle. We were down 15 by halftime and we came back to win by 3. I cried. I did not know that I was going to do that. Everyone in my row, everyone around me was crying. That was one of the best, most exciting moments that was days ago. And I'm still vibrating from it.
Oh, that's incredible. That's so incredible. What is something people always get wrong about you?
People, I'm lucky that Black don't crack, but a lot of people take me to be much younger than I am, which I take as a compliment, although sometimes they discount me because they're like, oh, you just graduated college. And I'm like, yeah, many, many, many years ago. So I'm grateful that that's what they get wrong, but they get that wrong all the time. But please keep carding me because it really helps my self-esteem.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you're going to remember the day when really that month where nobody cards you and you're like, oh, yeah. But you get your card out and they don't ask and you're like, oh, fine.
Yeah.
All right. What is one food you wouldn't want to give up?
Peanut butter. I had peanut butter right before this. I'll probably have peanut butter again before the day's out. But peanut butter is my jam.
Are you a morning or a night person?
Oof, it depends on the decade. Somehow I have become a morning person, much to my chagrin. I try to sleep in to 8 a.m. and my body at 6:20 is like, get up, it's time to go. So unfortunately, I'm a morning person.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas, because it just reminds me of my grandmother and being with family. But a very close second is my birthday, which I share with George Washington. So I call it a holiday.
It is a holiday. Okay. What job would you absolutely be horrible at doing?
Oof. Anything involving handiwork. I'm just not handy. So just like a general contractor or handyman or electrician or plumber, anything there that you need to be able to keep a house functioning, not it.
But did you hang that picture behind you? That's okay, right?
Yeah. But do you see that it's crooked?
I do.
Yeah.
I sure do.
Case in point. Not good. My husband did this one. It's straight. And then this is me over here.
That's incredible. What products would you seriously stockpile if you found out they weren't going to sell it anymore?
I would say everything from the pattern hair care line by Tracy Ellis Ross, because it has changed my hair game and I'm nothing without it.
Yeah, interesting.
Can't tell too much now with it up, but pattern is my jam.
Oh, interesting. I like it. Favorite app?
Shazam, because I always need to know what song I'm playing. Yeah.
Same.
Most used app.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn?
Instagram, because I like visual storytelling the best. And that is the place for it.
Who's your biggest inspiration in life?
Hands down, my grandmother, Tressie Mae Williams, almost 96. She delivered me from so much in my life. She is still so sassy, so smart, so everything. She is my biggest inspiration to this day.
As a child, what did you wish to become when you grew up?
I wanted to be the head of a human rights nonprofit, which is very weird for a child to be. I know it was like firefighter or princess or ballerina, none of the above. I wanted to work for like an HRC, or now at the time, the National Organization for Women was really huge. I wanted to do that. And now I feel in my current role at LA28, it's the closest that I've come for sure.
Yeah, that is definitely something big for a young child.
Yeah. With braces and headbands. Yeah.
So funny. All right. Last question. The future of women working in sports is?
All leadership all the time.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Why not? We've been used to a male-dominated world. Why not just turn the tide completely?
Yes. Ashley, this has been amazing. You were a great guest. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, how can they go about doing that?
Definitely look me up on LinkedIn. I am one of the few Ashley Dos Santoses. So yeah, hit me up that way and I'd be happy to connect.
All right. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you so much.
So what did you think of this episode? Do you know another woman who works or is aspiring to work in sports? Would you do me a favor and share this with them? It would mean so much if together we could support and inspire other women on their journey. And let's stay connected. I love meeting and talking to new people. Follow me on Instagram at Jahaan Blake and join the free Game of Her Own community by visiting jahaanblake.com. I can't wait to meet you.